Welcome to the Gray Area. The Gray Area Media. We've obligated ourselves to be the voice for all communities, speaking on topics that include community, religion, education, politics, technology, sports, health, and wellness. The Gray Area Media is a platform created by longtime friends for the sole purpose of providing our communities with the ability to voice current, past, and modern-day issues. The Gray Area, and its naming significance, solely speaks to the area in which people shy away from speaking because of media-based constraints or contractual-based obligations. Well, I'm here to tell you, we don't do that here. So please, stay tuned in. We're going to go live in a few minutes. Don't forget, please add us as a friend on Facebook so that you can follow our live feed. And not only that, please add us on Twitter and Instagram at The Gray Area Media. Please visit our website at www.thegrayareamedialive.com. Thank you. Hello, viewers. We are live right now. This is The Gray Area. Thank you for joining us. This is your boy, Ray E.
This is your boy, P. Wills.
And we have a friend of ours, Donnie Mims from LDE, League of Distinguished Gentlemen.
How you doing? How you doing?
How you doing, man? We have Carolyn Bicker.
Good evening.
Did I say that correctly?
Carolyn Bickle.
Bickle. Man, I still messed it up.
That's cool.
Any relation to Marcus Bickle?
I wish.
We have a good friend of ours, George Middleton.
That's right.
And he's releasing a new book today, the book titled
Black.
Black. Actually, it's out on Amazon right now.
That's correct. It's out.
Wow.
And what is it called?
Black. And Black is an acronym for Beliefs Limiting Authentic Cultural Knowledge.
Nice. Wow. That's incredible. And where can they find that? Is it just on Amazon?
It's on Amazon, and I keep them on me all the time, so you can stalk me at any time, and I'll always have some books.
Okay. And Lori, don't get mad at me. We have Lori. What's your last name? Matthews. See, I said it a couple times out there.
I know.
All right. Lori Matthews, George Middleton, and Carol Bickle, and Donnie Mims. We're talking about the state of mental health in regards to our culture. There's lots that's been going on in regards to, our history. There's knowledge that just has not been fed to us, as a people, not only just African-American people, all people. This is not just a ignorance that's just based on us. It's ignorance based on an entire country and world. Lots of people don't understand what's happening. A lot of people know of what's happening. None of us lived in the slavery days. We know of them, but we fail to know, how we got to this place, but there's news and different things out there. So hopefully today we can have a conversation about some of that information. And you've put a book together to help bring that all in together. Donnie Mims, you're a guidance counselor for IPS, and you get to see firsthand a lot of the struggles and things that go on, with the youth.
Correct.
It's just you see kids one day, they're all well and fine, and then the kids get killed, and they're gone, and it's just a cycle that continues to happen. So you're seeing firsthand the relationships being strained in schools in regards to kids, parents, teachers, just so many different things.
Correct.
And Carol and Lori, you gals both bring perspectives in regards to the book from a perspective of Caucasian and Black woman. I can't wait to hear you guys speak on this and hear your perspectives on what's happening. But what I want to do is allow George to give us an insight on his book and to really break open this conversation. Because we really need to, you can't understand what's happening in today unless you understand what's happening at the root.
Right.
So can you break a lot of that down for us and the viewers?
Well, that was well said. You just said my whole point, so I'm
Way to break it open.
Yeah, that's it. But no, really, that is a huge reason why I'm in the work that I'm in, and Donnie is in the work that he is in. We are trying to deal with the root
Right.
of behavior. And a lot of times people will look at the external and think if we can just change what we see, then we've accomplished things. But that's only lasts for a short period of time. You can
Right.
It's very temporary.
Right.
So until you go and get to the root, like you said.
Right.
And so that's what this book is about.
Right.
The premise of the book takes the discussion of racism from the more predictable one of, whitey did this to me, and
Right.
blacks are lazy and, don't want to do anything, and victims.
Right.
And it takes it to a different paradigm, which is regardless of what color you are or consider yourself to be, if you participate in the color construct,
Right.
then you're participating in a mentally unhealthy.
Can you really explain the color construct? Because I know some people are like, well, what does that mean?
So basically, race is an invented term for the country and globally as well for distribution of wealth.
Right.
And there's a strong correlation between pigmentation and the amount of money a person makes. And typically the lighter you are, the more access and the more advantageous you have to the economic gain. The darker you are, typically it's lower.
The harder life is for you.
On a general, it's not across. It's not for every situation, but in most situations,
Right.
economic distribution is based on pigmentation and gender as well. There's a gender breakdown as well.
Right. And when you say that, are you speaking on specifically like, say Carol, right? Well, I'll use Carol as an example. Carol is not familiar with, I'm not saying that you aren't, I'm just using it as an example. Let's say she wasn't familiar with the African American history. Therefore, her upbringing was specifically different than an African American or an Asian or a Latino. She only knows her perspective. Are you saying that when someone is involved in the social construct, even Carol can be a part of that because she doesn't realize her position and what she is to it from not knowing the history of African Americans or Latinos or Asian? Can you say that people who are unfamiliar with different cultures are somehow a part of this system because for them, life has always been great, but they look at you and say, well, why can't you do that?
You do it. Yeah.
I did it. Why can't you do it? So you're saying that the construct, the color construct is that they don't even realize that they may be a part of. And I think that's what's happening today.
Yes.
How do you feel, and you guys can all chime in on this, about people taking the victim role? I realize that when race is brought up in any conversation, somehow everybody plays victim. It's like, oh, well, you guys did this to us.
Yes.
Oh, well, you guys did this to us. Oh, you guys are just being racist. No, you guys are being racist. Like, how do we get to a place where we can talk about and have conversation about race without people pointing fingers or feeling victimized?
Well, I'll take that. Ray, the thing that it is people have to communicate.
Right.
And you have to get a perspective on how people feel.
Absolutely.
You have to listen.
Yep.
And then you have to determine if you're going to change your way of thinking.
Right.
And everyone is different. Every culture is different. I mean, my background is a German culture.
Right.
Am I my color or my culture?
Right.
I would say that I am my culture,
Right.
not necessarily my color,
Right.
because I feel like my color has gotten in the way
Absolutely.
of black and white and
Absolutely.
turned gray.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
it's
and it-
that perspective.
Right. It's part of that thing where, and because let's say Carol, I'm sorry, Lori, because you're black, Carol, because you're white, you guys are from the same arena. You're even though you're black, forget that you were born in Jamaica, forget that you were born in Africa, forget that you were born in Germany, forget that you were born in China. You're black. Right? Lori, Carol, forget that you were born in Germany.
Right.
Forget that you were born in Asia, Mexico, wherever it is. because of the way you look, you're included with the lump group of majority of people, and what they would say was white. Oh, you're one of those people. You're against us. You know, how can people get away from that logic? Because it's stereotype. It's stereotype. Immediate, and and the media doesn't help. Officer abuse, in certain situations. Not all officers are bad. We have some great officers that come on our show, and they're really awesome. But there's some officers that are bad. They don't help with the divide. It essentially continues to separate us because now it's them against us. You start seeing it in sports. The white guy, like boxing. If there's a Mexican guy going against a black guy,
Oh, the Mexicans go for the Mexicans.
Mexicans go for the Mexicans. If there's a white guy going against a black guy, this Mayweather coming up, he's not even from here. But guess what? We're going for McGregor. We want them to whip Mayweather's behind. You know what I'm saying? And it's not like they think he's a good fighter. They just want him to whip his tail. He talks too much, flashes his money. So this is the world we live in. You know what I'm saying? So these things don't help, and it's really affected our ability to progress and move forward. And like Carol was saying, is that dialogue is important. Community, talking with one another. Just you guys sitting here, us having this dialogue, conversing. People can sit in their living room or wherever they are and listen and decide whether they want to be a part of the solution or just keep staying in their little box, in their own little world. And a lot of people feel like, I'll just stay in my own little box. In my world, this all makes sense to me. Forget what they're saying. You know what I'm saying? So,
and you have some people that they don't even want to engage in that dialogue.
right.
They see the issues that are, going on, but they're so fearful of what people think. So they just rather just focus on themselves or their family and, their little circle.
Right.
But when you go outside and you see the things that are happening, which is, that's one of the reasons why we created this, platform.
Absolutely.
Is to have dialogues like what we are,
Yeah.
having now.
Yeah.
And, I just think that if more people just put their perspectives on, on the table, and not get,
To be honest.
yeah, exactly, and be honest and not get offended, with what people may think, I think that could be the key point of mending that relationship, not only between blacks and whites, but, everyone.
And actually, I think it's even okay to get offended because
Right.
it's just you have the right. If I say something that hurts your feelings or disrespects you, the only way I'm going to learn is for you to tell me.
Exactly.
Right.
I'd like to get back to your original question, which is
Okay.
about the victim status.
Right.
And I know Donnie is going to really resonate with me on this concept, but it's analogous to a abusive relationship.
Okay.
A lot of times people will blame the abuser, right?
Right.
But it's not just a one-sided deal.
Right.
You can't have an abuser without a victim,
Exactly.
and a victim can't be a victim without an abuser.
Good point.
And they're both decisions.
Right.
And until we start changing the paradigm of that abuser-victim mentality, then we're going to always keep doing exactly what you say, claiming victim status because that's the only way we think is the way to
deal with it.
deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like to use in my book. I use it's a very well-known adage about the elephant on the chain and post mentality. The way they train elephants. And someone told me just the other day that they had to stop doing that. That it was animal abuse or whatever. But for years, generations, they would take baby elephants and hook them to a post and a chain. Well, at their infant stage, they're not strong enough to break it.
Right.
But as the elephant grows and gets bigger and stronger, they never change the strength of the chain.
Right.
But the elephant never makes the mental connection that he's gotten
Bigger,
bigger, stronger,
stronger.
and never challenges that post and chain.
Right.
And in a lot of ways, Black America, which is a 1-point-some trillion billion consumer, has the wealth of the fourth largest nation,
Right.
is we are stuck on that post and chain. And
Right.
we're waiting.
Totally agree.
We're waiting for someone to come and help us.
Right.
Totally agree.
Right. And that ties into, we were speaking before this, but Christianity and some forms of some churches where they preach this message that says, hey, he's coming. You just hold on. And it's like, while that's true, you also have to move your feet. You also have to get out there and be proactive in helping others and loving others and preaching the gospel. You can't just continue to say to wait on these blessings, to wait on change.
Yes.
If you're not being a part of that change, if you're not being a part of the solution, nothing in the Bible says to just wait. So, again, at 19 years old, I decided that, look, I'm not just going to keep coming back here and y'all keep telling me to wait. I understood at an early age that I had to go do something with myself. I fell away from the church for a while and then got back in it once I heard the message preached like it was supposed to be preached, which inspired me to go help people and be more and be better. And that's really what it should be about. So we got to get away from this logic that somebody's going to change something. If slavery was, or the logic of slavery was all these things that happened back then, has been around for years, and people haven't changed their perspective. At some point in time, you have to say, they're not going to change their perspective. You have to change your perspective. Individually, we have to change our own perspective and be a part of something. And, like the gray area, we decided, look, we don't have a media company. We may not have money to have a CNN, but we have the money and the capacity to have a gray area. That's part of the change. I can only speak from my experience. I'm not a media person. I'm not a guy who went to school for communications. I'm a guy who's seen a need for something, me and my partner, and we just did it. So, that logic, waiting for somebody the elephant, you're big enough to break the chain if you just walk away, it's simple, so we have to get back into that logic, when in regards to helping ourselves. A lot of people say, well, you can help yourself. Education is there. Yeah, I agree, but there's some things limiting that ability, but you can go get an education. We live in a country where we can absolutely become something. Yes. There are some limitations, I would say, that depending on where you live at and what you're going after, there may be some people that, stop that, but that ultimately doesn't stop your drive. It should motivate you to be better, be bigger, be more. There's only a few people out there that have this hate in them. I think we give them too much power. Out of a million people, there's probably 100 people that really just hate people. And they wake up every day. We can't do anything about them. But there's a million other people that love you. That would jump on board.
What I was going to add to Ray is the minute that we stop seeing color as a nation, I'm talking globally, is the minute that we're going to heal.
Absolutely.
And, you bring up a good point as far as slavery goes.
Sure.
And white people, my friends that are white, I have got white friends, I've got black friends, I've got all kinds of different colored of friends.
Right.
But the thing of it is what I hear a lot of times is, well, they have the same advantages as we do, and I don't understand what's going on, and until you dig deep in the facts of what's going on in people's lives.
Right.
But growing up as a kid, things impact your life.
Right.
And you have to hurdle. You bring those into adulthood.
Right.
So just think of the years of generations of slavery, and how are we helping people jump over those hurdles?
Absolutely.
And that's what we've got to do.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, I want to add this. It's about people coming out of their comfort zone.
Okay.
Change is not comfortable.
Right.
There are many people who don't like change.
Right.
Some people's goal in life is to live comfortably.
Right.
And if you are asking me to come out of my comfort zone to help change, I don't want to do that.
Right.
I'm comfortable. My goal, I've achieved a serious goal for my life that I have.
Right.
And some people live that way. It's those, quote unquote soldiers that go out in the trenches to help make this change, to inspire
Absolutely.
and go out on that limb to try.
Right.
And it's the ones who are successful are the ones who get back up when they fall down.
Right.
Because change is not, it's not easy, and it doesn't come easy.
Right.
And it's, you have to be able to go through it and be willing to, quote unquote, take the fleas with the dog. If you want to see that change, you got to take what's going to come with it.
Right.
The negativity, the questions, people, you know, who you thought were in your corner playing devil's advocate.
Criticism.
It's
Right.
criticism. It's not necessarily people really hating on you or going against you. Some people in your corner are really trying to help you out and test you.
Right.
You know, give you, you know, kind of quiz you for when you get out there and really get tested.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
And so you got to be willing. If you want to really go out and change, one, you've got to be willing to come out of your comfort zone.
Absolutely.
Or your comfort zone. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a shout out to all the viewers tuning in right now. One viewer just made a comment just based on everything you just said. She said there's no growth in the comfort zone and no comfort in the growth zone.
Exactly.
Right, absolutely. In business, they call it the change curve, right? If you're in business, you understand what the change curve is. You go through this thing where you have to deal with the change, whether it's a company merging, whatever that perspective is. You don't like it, but eventually you get used to the process, and now you're good at it because you know what's going on. And really, to me, that change curve comes in, and one of you has said this, knowing yourself.
Yeah.
Knowing who you are. I think that we could single-handedly remove all the stuff that's going on if we just got people more knowledgeable about themselves and where they came from. I think the problem is people wake up every day and don't understand what their purpose is, why they're here, and who can they rely on. I could speak for in the African American community. It's a little bit more difficult, when your kid is asking you, "Daddy, why is that happening to that man? I thought the police was supposed to help people." How do you explain these things? Well, son, the talks you have to have with your kid in regards to some of the things that go on is just crazy, because you have to take your adult mind and downsize it to a kid's mind who's interested in knowing the truth. So are you going to lie and say, what are you going to say? You're going to say, well, there's some bad people out there. You try and give it the best you can. But as they grow up and they continue seeing these things, then the media doesn't help, because that is the first thing they show. Speaking on that perspective, there's articles, right? There was a situation that happened recently where a guy, I think this is in Indianapolis, where he fled the police, right? And he ran into something, and they end up shooting into the car, and he got killed. It's a black guy. In Indiana, in another city, a guy did the same thing. He was white. He fled. He had guns. All these different things. Oh, maybe something was wrong with him, or who, all of a sudden it was a different scenario. And the news and the media and the commenters, you can just tell that it's like them versus them. And that doesn't help people. It really doesn't. Like, I think news articles shouldn't have any comments. I don't think that the perspectives are necessary anymore, because they become so irate and angry and mean, and it drowns out all the people who really have a positive message.
So let me give you a scenario to that and see how you play in this. Right now, the gray area is a community,
Right.
energized. You're non-funded. You're self-funded.
Right.
You're all about community, pro people helping.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
Then I pretty much think I know what you do, but
Sure.
I just want to give you this
Okay.
this scenario. Then someone sees the power of your media.
Mm-hmm.
They come to you and say, "You know what? We want to fund you,
Mm-hmm.
and for that, we will write so many zeros that your kids' kids and their kids
Right.
will be well off.
Mm-hmm.
All we need is just for you to let us have a little bit of that creative control."
No.
Absolutely.
We've already we've had that conversation at least 20 times.
Many times.
No, not necessarily. Some people might say, okay, yeah, we'll do that, and then they could take the money and create something else. That's an option.
But what do you think the average person, though?
The average person would
Take that.
yeah, they would take that deal.
If you don't see, the thing is about life, and from my perspective, is that I've been financially blessed, and no amount of money can make me do anything. I'm sorry. money is doesn't
all relative.
money doesn't move me in a way that I'm like, oh, I better jump on that, because it's not organic. It doesn't feel good, and everybody who has money aren't happy. So you look at it like, what is your purpose if it's not happiness? I don't really get that, and then I'm not okay with all these companies that are controlled by media. And the reason we did this is because we're not controlled. So, we would definitely not give anybody no amount of money they want to give us for zeros or whatever it is, because one, it's not organic, and any control they have is control we don't have over something that we started.
Yeah,
So,
and money,
Your belief.
money is all
Absolutely.
relative anyway. $100 to me might seem like $1 to you. It's all relative, but that's so true. If someone did that, it just, whenever they try to like mute you, like what we do, we touch on like really really touchy subjects.
Yes.
right.
So if someone offered that, I'm with him. No, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
And I believe you guys. Like I said, I was relatively sure what your answer would be.
Yeah.
But the question really was more rhetorical.
Yeah,
For sure.
Because
Absolutely.
the point is that this is about an economic profit motive,
Right.
and most people's principles have a number of zeros
Absolutely.
tied
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
Now, for me, I'm a little older than you guys.
Sure.
However, for as long as I lived, I'm still not that confident that I know what I would do if ever put in that position.
Okay.
Because the minute I think that, okay, I got this licked and my principles and my, then something come and really show me about
Sure.
something about myself that I didn't and wouldn't want to admit.
Sure.
But I know the game is out there.
Right.
Yeah, it is.
I'm a musician.
Right.
And so we see
And you see
in
it in
today's
music.
music today.
Absolutely.
We have very talented artists that can't come from your perspective, but then when they see that the only way to make the money is to
Talk
play
about
that
some-
game,
yeah.
and that's their
Right.
main bread and butter. Most people don't have that wherewithal, that support.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Right.
and I mean, wow, because I was going to use music as an example. You have artists, in rap right now, and they'll talk about certain things that popping mollies and doing other drugs and but I honestly believe that they did not come into that industry with that
With that
mindset.
mindset.
They probably came into it with more of a conscious mindset, but when they saw those zeros and said, "Hey, you have to sound like this person if
Yes.
you want to if you want to sign with us and be this big star,"
Right.
so they just changed their whole image.
Right, and it's really sad today. I mean, and this speaks on exactly what we're talking about in regards to how things are changing. Everything from sports, and let's talk about this. There's three things in this country that are important to African Americans. It's unfortunate, but this is what's important: sports, music, and TV. Now, I can't speak for everybody because those things really don't interest me when it comes to money. I feel like those are the three things that we're pigeonholed in, and because it's so profitable and it's so shown and out there, that's things people want to gravitate to. So naturally, people don't care much about education. They want to go play basketball. They want to go play football. They want to go make a rap video or be a music star. Or be on a reality TV show. Now all of a sudden the ethical portion is gone. The morality of what life is about and to attain greatness and to be happy and to live a good civilized life is all thrown out the window because you give an 18-year-old $45 million and he gets in the league. What is he going to do with that?
You already know.
Yeah, he's going to surround himself with this, but dude is 18 years old. Not that there's not some smart 18-year-olds out there, but at 18 years old, you just go start buying stuff that you never had before. You want to help your buddy out. You want to buy mom's a crib. You want to buy cousin a crib, grandma a crib. And so many guys out there that lose money so fast
Exactly.
because they just don't understand it. So why are we giving 18-year-olds that much money?
Well, I think kind of like is the NFL. I think even the NBA, they have changed some of the. They have changed some of their rules and regulations on how
regards to-
much
right.
people can make when you first come in the league.
Okay.
Now, I will say there needs to be, maybe there is. I don't know. I'm actually doing the research
Okay.
right now. there needs to be some more financial advisement
Right.
in the very beginning.
Mandatory.
There also, in my opinion, needs to be, here we're going to, like, they need to set people up for retirement. Like,
Right.
yes, you're going to make X amount of dollars on this first contract. However, 30% automatically goes into
Right.
some type of retirement account.
Right.
I hate to say, you need to tell someone how to spend their money, but in this case, you need to tell somebody how to spend their money.
Absolutely.
There's so, the average in the NFL, it takes 5 years, I believe, to to qualify for a pension.
Right.
In the NBA, I think it's somewhere around 3 or 4 years. But however, the average NFL career expectancy is only
Less
3
than that.
years.
Right.
So right there, you set up for failure. As soon as you get in the door and you get your player card, you still set up for failure until you get past that
Right.
5-year plan. You have invested all your time, all your effort, all your mindset into getting to this place that chews you up and spits you out.
Right.
So once you make it, you haven't made it. You got in the door, but what are you doing to make this truly a part of your life? Is it going to use you, or are you going to use it? That's where, that's my perspective
Right.
on it, and that is where, that's another chapter of my life. I
Sure,
won't bring
for
that
sure.
up right now, but that's where I am trying to get some people to understand.
Right. Right.
So
Very good.
So, do you think that the NFL should be more accountable for making that decision, or should the player be more accountable?
That's a great question.
I think it needs, now, I think it's kind of a 50-50. Fortunately, players make a lot of money.
Right.
Excuse me, can make a lot of money. Some contracts are worth more than others. Obviously, we know that. However, coming in, there needs to be mandatory financial management for the first year. Like, everyone should be, there needs to be, and this needs to be delegated by team. Like, you are responsible for your rookies, taking care of, going to see financial planners, setting up retirement accounts, and things like that, because everyone is only a play away from their being, your career being over. And I think, players need to be mindful of that. Yeah, you're in and you made it, and now you can buy mama this, that, and the other. I mean, me personally, I've been to the NBA draft, and I've seen how people lives change walking through the lobby.
Right.
There was a woman walking through, like, I was doing a promotion, managing a promotion there.
Sure.
And she was, I'm giving out her stuff, and she's like, "Can I have some more?" I'm like, "Man, we can only give one, blah, blah, blah." She was like, "Well, don't worry about it. In an hour, I'll come back and buy this whole thing. My baby
Wow.
getting drafted." So, I mean, that right there, that lets
Wow.
you know.
Mindset.
Yeah, the mindset. And it if I'm pretty sure if everyone in here had made it to, that professional athlete status, there's some people who we would love to bless.
Right.
But I'm telling you, there, at this point in time, there needs to be like mandatory financial management, like just education for
Absolutely.
these athletes.
So,
Right.
so on that topic, that everything that you guys are saying is so very, very true. The one, I think, most important component that we're butting heads with whenever we talk about solutions to a problem like that
Right.
in any of these systems is who is in control of that.
Exactly.
Right.
Accountability.
So
If it works for them.
yes. So if the person that created the game and that created the system, is it his option to do it, or is his requirement to do it, and how motivated is that person going to be? So, for instance, in any of these sports leagues, is it Afrocentric or is it Eurocentric?
It's Afrocentric. Are you talking about the players or ownership?
The ownership.
Oh, a Euro.
Euro.
So,
Definitely.
so even on the best of intention, because this is capitalism, right?
Absolutely.
It's about competition, right?
Uh-huh.
Right.
Right? I mean, especially in sports,
That's the name
You
of
know,
the game.
it's competition. So most people that are in the sports event, they're highly competitive. Are they going to how motivated are they really going to be in trying to make sure that you are financially?
No, you want me to answer? Or you, yeah,
Well, I was just gonna say they're not really going to be motivated because what they're giving away, they've already gotten what they need. Otherwise, they wouldn't give it away.
Right.
They're gonna get theirs off the top. You know what I mean? I mean that's the name of the game. You know, they're gonna get theirs off the top, and you gonna get what's left. And I won't name the metaphor, but I'm pretty sure y'all follow me.
Essentially, this is the system that you get, and you get $14 million, right? Now you have to pay for an advisor. You got to get a house. You have to get a car. You get all these different things, and guess what system you're still feeding?
Yes.
The system that got you that 14 million. It's a machine.
Right.
So, I mean, and this is why more people need to become politicians and become educators, and teachers, all kinds of different positions. But that's why I brought them up. Those three are the most important for some reason, and they get the most pub, and they create the most money because they end up bringing that money right back into the machine that created it,
It's
keep it
entertainment.
going.
This
And this is
country
why
brought-
we need to focus on more important things like understanding that there are other job roles that need to be filled. We need better politicians that are fair. We need politicians to come in and stop lobbyists from paying politicians to create these different laws to help other people. There's so many other things that we need to do.
All
And it's
all
just
those-
not be good at sports, TV, and radio.
All those things you're saying are true. However, when we talk about the black mentality, the black community,
Right.
It's
there's
totally
something
different.
that has to happen before we even do that. You had mentioned maybe 20 minutes ago
Yeah.
that knowing who we are.
Right.
So in the book, there's an activity I have called the collective conscious comparison.
Okay.
All right, and it deals with trying to figure out if where you are with your own self-assessment.
Right.
So we do this exercise all the time, and it's just amazing the results we get. We might get some different results tonight, but
Right.
I want to try it. Let's take some cultures,
Okay.
because every culture has some type of, they have things that are representative of them, right?
Yes.
Right.
So when I mention the Hispanic culture, the Latin culture, give me 3 top things that you would identify with the Hispanic culture.
Loyal.
Loyal.
They group together when it comes to business,
Yeah, unity.
and they work hard.
Okay, hard workers.
Yeah.
Anybody want to add to that?
And with my experience, I would say family. They're definitely family oriented. They take care of their own, and they are about education.
Okay, all right.
I mean, I could basically say what I believe why, because they have a sense of where they come from.
Okay.
They come from a place where I think if you have one American dollar, that's like $4 or $5 there, $10 there. Okay, so they come from that environment and that culture, and they see a better place. So they know their history of where they come from. So when they come over here, they see this place as an opportunity. We don't see it as an opportunity.
Okay. So don't get there yet. Let's just stay
Okay.
within that.
Okay, I got
all
you.
right. So let's go to the Asian culture. Give me some top identifying traits or characteristics that you see within
Business,
business.
education,
Yeah, education.
Family.
and
Family.
family.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Business, education, and family.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to the authentic African culture, not the African American culture. The authentic
Same thing.
African culture.
Same
How
thing.
would you describe? What are some things you describe with
The
this?
same
Same
thing.
thing.
The exact same 3.
Business, education, and family.
Yes.
Okay. Let's go to the white culture. What are 3 top things that you would associate with the white culture?
Same 3 things.
Same thing.
What's that?
Business, education, and family.
Business, education, family. Okay. Now you know what's coming next. The black culture.
Right.
Give me 3 top things that you associate with black culture.
Oh man, sports.
Family, money,
Yeah.
Money,
Money.
image.
sports,
You said
material.
materialistic
things.
things.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
So
Everything to do with the outside.
Right.
Right. Clothes, shoes. I mean, just cars, material stuff.
All right. So how does that sound in comparison to the other culture groups that you analyzed?
It sounds disgusting, honestly.
Horrible.
Materialistic.
And I have to say, you guys were the nicest when we done this exercise. We've heard
Right.
a lot worse when we got by the
Yeah.
time we got to the black
Right.
side of the things. So right there, even though it sounds like, okay, everybody knows that, well, okay, what's the purpose of that? The fact that you could automatically connect black with those type of concepts
Right.
means that on some level, you are treating others that way
Right.
from that perspective, most likely subconsciously, sometimes on purpose.
Right.
If you're in any type of human service position or policy writing position or governmental position, in law enforcement position, imagine how that mindset comes into play
Right.
under pressure or when the money's on the table.
Right.
Right? Or
What do
when
you
you're talking
think about?
What are you
Right.
thinking about? You know, you're only going to put money where you think it's worth to put
Right.
the money,
Right.
right? So just that little subconscious piece that
Right.
once you bring it out, it's like, wow, I do think like that.
Right.
You know,
Right.
that has a lot to do. So when you get to the point where you have a black person in power
Right.
in any of these systems, whether it's political, sports administration, or management,
Right.
that same mindset is going with them.
Right.
Right. We just had 8 years of, the first black president.
Right.
And you mentioned earlier, a lot of the black community is disappointed because they feel like he did
You
not
should have did something for them.
represent for them.
Right.
Right. So there's a mindset that until we have a collective conscience, like these other collective groups that we identified, until we decide what our collective conscience is going to be,
Right.
we're going to just keep churning over the same type of,
Right.
form over fashion. No substantive, nothing that you can, there's no meat on the bone.
Right. And you know what's crazy is that this is what's being displayed by media. If you notice around tax time, things become important. The ads go up around Christmas, Black Friday.
Yeah.
So essentially the business world has decided that, hey, this is when people purchase the most stuff. This is when this group of people purchases the most stuff. This is when we should really put out advertisement and really, really go hand in. Everything that you're saying is correct. And I think that with the last election and other things that are taken into account, that mindset is slowly changing. Now, it's obviously not going to happen overnight, but we see every day, and especially in what we do, we see organizations. Shout out to Turning Point Christian Church. They're one of the
Absolutely.
ones that are hitting the ground on like Post Road and all these bad areas, really out there in the streets, which is what the church is supposed
Yes.
to be. We see people pounding the ground. Don't sleep. Dominic Dorsey, he's out there, at all kinds of events, anything from LGBT to, black, events to help support the narrative, to change the narrative. That people are trying and doing that, but the media continues to show this. Somebody got killed, so-and-so got killed, drug deal, drug bust. It's just like, how do you compete with that? If people's main access to media are things that they see when they turn on the TV or the radio or, on Facebook, so much false information going on. I see people sharing things from different pages that I absolutely know is false, but they believe it. And it's unfortunate, but that's how Trump got in office, because there was so much fake media going on, and it was believable.
Yeah.
It was believable for somebody to put out an article that said, "Hey,
Yeah.
Hillary has thousands and thousands of dollars hidden." A guy they said that Hillary or the Clinton family had somehow been a part of something where they were hoarding kids at this restaurant down in the basement. Some guy took that literally,
Yeah.
went to that place, and started stabbing and shooting up the place. And they're like, "Dude, what the heck is going on?" It was a false article. So, that tells you right there that people are taking these articles and things that are being shared, and they're really looking at it like it's the truth. And it's unfortunate, but prior to this, we talked about how people are so caught up in their own, pride and realistic mind that they can't believe anything other than what they believe. How do we change that? How do we change that mindset?
Ray and George, you guys, realistically too, they came up with that slogan, money is the root of all evil.
Right.
That is the most truest statement I think that anyone could say, because of the fact people are so, like you said, so caught up with the American dollar and how much am I going to make and what's that
Right.
going to make me, instead of opening, like you guys did, your voice and
Right.
creating a voice, taking that money, that American dollar,
Right.
and creating this voice
Absolutely.
to help change the mindset of others.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is what we all have to do. We all make, a decent living,
Yes.
and to take that money and use it
Absolutely.
to help others. That is our gift.
That's what it's
and
about.
This is what it is. What's our purpose on life? Is to
Absolutely.
help others.
Right.
And Carolyn,
That's what the true American way should be.
Exactly.
Right there.
and what? I have a question.
Sure.
How do you, in your perspective, right, blacks, how do you think blacks could play the game if they don't know their history?
I don't, realistically, if they don't know the history, I don't know if they can play the game. They may make up the game.
Right.
So I don't have the answer to that.
That's what I believe is happening. The game is being made up as you go, and you don't know it's a part of the bad game until you are incarcerated or dead, or something bad is happening to you. I'm after this election, I'm not Democratic or Republican. I mean, neither one of these parties fairly help anybody. There's things that I like on both sides that I think could help the community, but they're so busy arguing against one another and trying to prove a point that they're forgetting about the real people.
But they're all intertwined.
Right,
That's,
right.
But we can talk about that for
Yeah.
hours. upon hours.
There are some components to what makes someone successful in the game.
Okay.
Definitely knowing your history,
Okay.
who you're from. That's definitely like the
Absolutely.
first component.
That's number one.
The next most important piece is economic self-sufficiency.
Absolutely.
So every successful political group or culture group has a strong economic base.
Right.
All right. The second piece from there, then comes the political base,
Okay.
political power, because you can't have any kind of power whether
If you're not economically
if you're coming from
established.
a Christian standpoint or
Right.
an atheist standpoint.
Right.
It's all the same when it comes to this capitalistic environment.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely. I
agree.
capitalism is not about right or wrong,
Right.
It's about green.
black versus right.
About that dollar.
Okay, and that's how it plays. So the successful individual, the successful organization, the successful cultural group
Right.
understands what comes first: economic muscle.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's number one. And as a black community, how would you rate our ability of our economic muscle?
It's horrible because, and that was the reason why I asked, Carolyn that question, because I have white friends, and we have the same type of discussions.
Yeah.
And some of them say, "Yo, Pat, what happened, in the past has nothing to do with you." So,
Sure does.
so this is my rebuttal. I said, okay, well, let's say if your great great grandfather was a billionaire, right? He dies, he passes his wealth down, and it goes all the way down to you. Should you take that wealth? You had nothing to do with it, right?
That's a
old
great
money.
question.
Yeah.
I mean, and so every time I say that, they look at me like, wow, you know what, man, that's a good point.
Right.
So I'm like, you cannot say that it's okay for you to take this wealth, even though you weren't there when your great great grandfather built it and earned it and then passed it down.
Right.
See, we've been passed down, if you want to call it curses or just these things have been passed down to us. So I'm glad that you were very, very honest with your answer, because I think it's impossible for us to know where we are going and what we need to do without learning our history. But it's like people are trying to make us not even look back. But no one says that to the so-called Jews when they have a Holocaust memorial every year.
And 9/11.
Like no one says that, but when it comes to us, it's a huge problem. And I just find that very odd. But once we know like our history and look at where we are now, I think that we will be more united, and just not just blacks, but just everyone.
Absolutely.
Okay, guys, I've been sitting here very quiet.
Yes, I'm surprised you haven't chimed in. I was going to ask you. Please do.
It's hard for me to articulate because you're speaking and I'm feeling,
Okay.
and that's normally what I do.
Okay.
But I've lived it through this,
Yeah.
and I don't think as Black people we are still in infancy. We are not ready to. I don't know how to put this to words. Like, we have to be strong in ourselves and figure out who we are. I don't think segregation is a bad thing.
Okay.
We're not ready to.
Attain all that.
We're not ready
Okay.
because we still don't know who we are. We don't know where we came from. When I first read this book, it really kind of pissed me off and made me pause and think about, you know, and when people say, when I see you, I don't see Black, that irritated me. And I still don't know how to handle that. I don't know how to speak on that
Right.
because I am a Black woman.
Right.
And when you look at me, what do you see?
Right.
And when I look at you, race and racism are two totally different things.
Right.
People need to understand that.
Okay.
Everybody white is not racist.
Right.
Everybody Black doesn't even understand what racism really is.
Right.
I don't hate you because you're white. I hate you for what you've done to my people.
Right.
But I've had to go through this. I grew up in the 60s. I was a teenager being bused to all white schools and living through this. And it's painful for me. It still is today.
Right.
That's why I've been sitting here so quiet.
Right.
But I don't know how to fix it. But as Black men, we're not ready.
Right.
Well, I think that, and this goes for any person, but especially the Black community, we have to understand. So many people talk about limitations. The body may be limited, but the mind is not.
Okay.
So if you hear people say, whatever you set your mind to, you can do, and this, that, and the other, it's true. You may have some ailments, but if you really think about something you want to do, you can do it. There are Olympians who have no legs, setting world records.
Right.
Who would have thought, that person at their dark moment, when they had that traumatic experience where they lost their legs, who would have thought that they would be competing for an Olympic medal?
Right.
That do you really feel that there was that thought ran through their head at that moment? No, their life was devastated because the normal life that they lived, was with legs. So now they have to re-alter that. They could have turned, they could have been overwhelmed with guilt and shame and hurt and suffer from PTSD and just shut down. There are so many people that do, but mentally, you have to be ready to take on that traumatic event, and you have to say, I can conquer it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get ready. Some people are mentally tough enough to do it. Some people are not. Unfortunately, I have coaching high school football in my background. There are times when some student athletes appear to be mental midgets. I mean, it is what it is. Mentally, they try to prepare for the adversity that may come through the game, but when that adversity hits, all the things that you talked about throughout the week, being able to handle and prepare for, here it is. Let's stand up against it and fight through it. And some of them being mental midgets, they cannot face it. They crack under the pressure. They get that unsportsmanlike conduct because somebody, called them a name or pushed them, punched them in the pile, and they want to retaliate. No, these are the things that we talked about were coming.
Right.
Don't you feel like, too, you guys, that it's back to basic sales 101, where if you're going to determine your life, and you've got to make goals,
Right.
And you got to want different things in your life, productive, unproductive things. But sometimes people don't know how to even do that and make a
Absolutely.
goal. And until you can
Yeah.
accomplish a large goal, you've got to make some small goals and conquer
Absolutely.
those.
Thank you.
So,
Right.
we as and it's a society, we
Right.
wake up and we think, well, that's what we're going to do. And between waking up of who we are and then wanting to be the superstar, there's a lot of hard work in between.
Right.
And people don't know how to get there. So
Right.
I think it's again back into educating, helping assist,
Right.
even with small little baby steps.
Absolutely.
And that's the point of this whole conversation.
So do you think fear plays a major part in that?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Who wants to fail?
Right.
We
Yeah.
don't want to fail. We want to succeed.
Right.
So if we don't take chances, though, we've got to fail. We've
Right.
got to fail to grow.
Absolutely.
And some cultures, colors, races have failed many more times than others just because they've taken the chance.
Right.
And you got to take that chance.
So,
Right.
so let me tie those in, the last few things I heard in. Donnie said the mind, the body may be limited,
But the
but
mind
the
is-
mind is not. And you mentioned, okay, we've got to educate, right, to be able to handle, to be able to succeed, to educate. So those two things tie in with the mind.
Right.
And one of the strongest platforms that's plaguing our community is education, which goes right to
Right.
mind development.
Right.
And I think I'm looking at people in this room as survivors in spite of.
Absolutely.
Like the feel I
Absolutely.
get from you guys
Right.
is someone can take you and put you in the worst situation that you could ever imagine, but there's already an innate resiliency in you that you're going to figure a way out and
Right.
get back
I've
to
been
where you
there,
know.
yeah.
that- no,
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But see, unfortunately, that's in the bell curve.
Right.
Right. Most people ain't falling in that bell curve.
Right.
So you have to have a system. Now, if you take the dominant culture, which is the white culture, which is the Eurocentric standard, they
Okay.
can afford to have a plethora of mindsets because there's a safety net for them where
Right.
they fall.
Right.
As a black minority community, we don't have a system that's set up for us. If we fail, we are done. It's catastrophic.
Right.
So when you get someone who did graduate, who got that six-figure job, he is playing not to lose.
Right.
Versus his white counterpart is like, man, this is nothing. I'll walk away from this job and get me another one.
Right.
So it all comes down to first education, because if you're not free in your mind,
Right.
even though your mind is limitless,
Right.
you're going to treat it like it's limitless. So I brought this little
Sure.
graph here. I just spread
Okay.
it
Okay.
around.
Can
and
we
it
find
shows-
this graph online?
Mhm, you sure can. It
Okay.
shows, just from the black community standpoint, how we are underrepresented in the system of education.
Okay.
Okay,
Go ahead.
go right ahead, Donnie.
Go ahead, finish what you're gonna
Okay.
say. I'm gonna talk about that.
Yeah,
Go
it
ahead.
just shows how underrepresented, and there's statistics that show that at least within the first 10, 15 years of a child's development, being taught by a member of his or her own race improves his educational attainment.
Right.
Okay, so most of you who have children, I don't know if you guys are old enough to have children. Y'all still babies, ain't you?
Yeah. Yeah. We got you.
Yeah.
We got you. We all got you.
But most times when I ask parents, how many of your children's teachers are black, there's a stunned glare across their face.
Mm-hmm.
And if there is one, he's either the counselor or he's the gym teacher. And it's generally not a black male. So that means for the earliest part of their most important emotional development for education, they're being taught by somebody who at best cannot meet them from a culturally relevant position unique to their needs.
True.
Absolutely. Because yeah. Go ahead.
I see it.
Yeah.
I see it. I see it in, I might ruffle some feathers with these statements, but That's where I'm at. I see it in the school I work at. I see it in the school my boys go to. I set my daughter in that school, but she's in a Spanish immersion, so that was expected. We aren't Spanish, but there are. I fully support that statement. I'm a true believer in, the need for you for as a student, you need to see people that look like you. And I'm not only talking about, black kids, I'm talking about students. There needs, and this goes to principals, administrators, anybody in education, superintendents. You need to look at the population of your schools, and your staff needs to match that population.
Right.
If you want to be, you really want to hit your demographic, your staff needs to match that. The percentage needs to be close, not far away. If you really, now there are teachers that truly make a difference, no matter what color they are, and that's awesome.
That is.
However, there needs to be that is so true. I'm sitting here getting
I can tell
goosebumps.
you're
You know what I
passionate
mean?
about it.
Yeah.
You're in it.
It is something that really strikes me. When I grew up, I'm born and raised here. I went to Lawrence North High School, went with these guys. When we were in high school, Lawrence North, probably the African American population may have been 20%.
Yeah.
Maybe. And that's probably high.
And how many of your teachers were black?
Mr. Brown.
Mr. Browner,
Miss McGregor,
Miss McGregor,
maybe 2 or 3.
and Miss
Patufe.
Bingham was a counselor.
Miss Patufe.
Yep,
Mrs. Canary.
yep. Mr. Yarrow was a dean.
He was a dean.
Mr. Falkins was assistant principal. And it's
So that's
dot
quite a bit.
after that.
That's quite a bit.
Well, that was over 4 years. So,
Yeah.
they came and went.
yeah.
That was
But-
over 4 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now
That's even less, man.
I don't know what the staff is now. However, Lawrence North is now, if I'm not mistaken, about 43% African American, maybe more.
Right.
So they're the majority race now, but their staff is not the majority.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry, I love Lawrence North, I bleed it, and this, that, and the other, but they're not the only school like that. They are not.
So Donnie, read this.
Out loud.
Only a fool would let his enemy teach his children.
And who's that by?
By Malcolm X.
So my question is, when you look at that, I know that's of a different time and era, but statistically, I think
Statistically,
it proves that statement correctly.
statistically, we just slapped a whole bunch of people in the face.
Now, this isn't
Including
saying that
myself.
anybody can't teach. This is saying if you want to have successful, that you want this demographic to be successful, you need to get them in front of some people who can relate to their life.
Let me ask
We'll
you this
also
question.
teach them on your history too.
Let me ask you this
Go ahead.
question.
Okay.
Where
Yes.
Where in
Absolutely.
America is there an all-white student population and a predominantly black teaching staff and administration?
No.
No.
Nowhere.
Now, is that coincidence? Is that random? For all of America, that you can't find one, for us people here in this room, that none of us have had an experience where you've been in an all-white student population run and governed by an all or predominantly black staff and administration. Now, why is that? Really think about that question.
Sure.
I mean, it's easy to come up with a quick answer, but think about the odds of that.
Right. Right. This really speaks to some of the disadvantages because think of it like this. Let's start with a kid who comes from one of the poor neighborhoods. Let's say that he's from a single parent home, he or she. Let's say that they are also helping raise their siblings because their siblings the mom is working all kinds of hours. She may work night shift, day shift, for whatever reason. She's not at home as much as she'd like to be. So you have this kid who's not only have to worry about going to school and get educated, but has to worry about feeding his siblings. In some cases, being a parent until mom gets home. So you send them to school and you force feed them math, history, English, and all the while they're thinking, sitting there, well, what am I going to make them tonight? When is mom coming home? Is mom coming home? Oh, my dad is still in jail. Wonder when dad's getting out. When is my life going to get easier? A kid should never feel that amount of pressure. And this is absolutely what's happening. And because of the mass incarceration of black men, which force feeds this narrative that, well, they shouldn't be in jail. They should be at home with their kids. And it's like, well, they shouldn't be in jail for a marijuana charge, doing 20 years, when the dude from Subway gets 3 months, It's just like nobody is taking that into consideration when it comes to the children. A lot of these kids are forced to be in situations that they didn't ask for. And then they have to grow up and become something. When some kids never have to deal with that or see that at all.
But
With no guidance. With no guidance.
With no guidance.
But before you
Or very little.
develop that theme any further, because I'm going to ask the question of that, like I'm going to ask the question about this education piece.
Sure.
When you see these statistics, and you see the wisdom of a man who he lived it and died it, like he spoke it, right?
Right.
Why are we not more energized as a community to independently create our own systems of education?
I know some people who are leaning that way. I'm in support of them. I know quite a few people, honestly, who have spoken about it. Where they are with it, I do not know. I don't know if it's kind of lack of resources. I believe they certainly have the experience, and I'm talking about principals, counselors, teachers, assistant principals. I've met some very intelligent and very well experienced assistant principals. When I was at Arlington, Miss Cassandra Shipp, she is very experienced. The teacher or the assistant principal I'm with now, Miss Rosalind Stratford, she is very knowledgeable and has, just the things that she does and the things that the impact both of them have on their students was just mind-boggling to me, and I love it. You know what I mean? I love that. But there are other people who I know are trying to do this. What the barriers are, I don't know. I haven't looked into it myself. But I know I have told them that, I'm, ready and willing to support that. I do think it is necessary. I feel that people of every culture, for instance, at Tech, the Hispanic culture is booming. We might be able to give you Hispanic staff on one, maybe two hands. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. But the Hispanic culture is booming. Me personally.
See, the difference is their foundation is a little different.
True.
They come from a family that is married in building business, loyalty, and family. So, not saying that they don't need the same type of assistance, but
right.
Culturally, they're coming from a background where they have assistance, from not only their family but the surrounding family.
But they still need that. Here I am fighting for African Americans to have that representation, but this booming demographic needs to be addressed before they fall in the same trap that we're in.
Sure.
Their students have the same barriers. They're coming to a school where they have no one to relate to.
Sure.
Who knows the issues that, they're facing at home. Right. When they come to school, they need someone to relate to.
Sure.
Now, the Hispanic teachers that I know that we have, like at Tech, they're very impactful, and they have great relationships with students. Me personally, I have been looking into, but right before school ended, I made a great professional connection with a gentleman to start coming in and trying to mentor some of our Hispanic students. I'm into filling gaps, okay? And if it means that, I kind of get the ball rolling with my own race, and then I go back and help another race, that's fine. That's what I do. I believe in lifting while climbing.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
I believe in
And that's
Well,
what
you
it's
look
all-
like you can too, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey,
Superman.
Literally, man, he's probably the strongest guy in the state. Okay, look, I didn't live in the '60s. Okay, but from what my grandmothers and my grandfathers told me, it was more unity as far as us. As a people, like we had our own businesses, so we utilized our money in our neighborhoods and built them up. Well, here comes integration. So I look at the benefits of integration. It allowed blacks to get in certain doors that they wouldn't have been able to get into. However, it has also taken away from that unity and that neighborhood camaraderie that we had. So you go from the '60s where you had freedom fighters, and then now here comes the '70s, and now you have us glorifying pimping and drugs and things like that. So our minds are just in that 10-year gap or span completely shifted. And now here comes the '80s and the whole crack epidemic.
I believe.
So there's a lot that and I'm sure that you all have heard of COINTELPRO.
Yeah.
That has played a major role in it too. So there's a lot. So now we're in 2017, and our mindset isn't nowhere near where it was 20 years ago.
That just tells you that as a community, we focus on the wrong thing. And which is why your book is all the important, because once you understand who you are and and about self and what you are we got to stop worrying about who's the president,
Right,
who's
right.
the leader of this and who's the
Yes.
leader of that. Because if we start at home and we dive into our families and we create individuals who can go out there and do these things, then if the bond at home is strong, nothing outside of your home can get to them. The problem is that these families are not jailing. Kids are, again, we live in America where the demand for work is going higher and higher. People are working longer and longer hours. They're starting to work overtime on the weekends. We're in a demanding country that you get your package from Amazon the next day. I love Amazon. I don't want to knock them. Keep doing that. But essentially, that person who's dropping your package off may be going on a 16 to 17-hour shift, and their kids are still at home. So, my point in saying that is we have to get back to family. We have to get back to, and that has to start with to stop this mass incarceration crap. People make mistakes when they're young, okay? Somebody get caught with some drugs, okay, it was a mistake. Okay, don't do it again. Go home. And that's different if you're out there feeding drugs to families of people and they're dying. That's different. But not for marijuana. I think that people make mistakes, as we see all the time. Some people are forgiven of those mistakes, no matter the crime, and they're sent home with a pat on the back, never to do it again. And others are incarcerated for the rest of their life. And that is impactful on the young man who grows up with just his mom, right? It's a different perspective.
Well, think about the rapist out in California, the white kid that raped that woman, and the judge.
That's right. He cut us some slack big time.
Yeah, he got cut up. He got cut so much slack because it would ruin his life. Is what the judge
Right,
said.
and that's what I was saying.
What?
Right.
Well, that's when state laws come into matter and to
Right.
place, because you can take someone. I just watched a program that I highly believe in, as far as documentary about
Sure.
a gentleman that killed his wife, a white guy, got
Right.
9 years in jail.
Yeah.
And these two black guys, these young kids, had raped a gal, and they got 30 years.
Wow.
I mean, that is ridiculous.
Right.
And that is state laws that are not aligned
Right.
and fitting the crime anyway and not giving a chance. I
Right.
mean, that is something that
Right.
has to be worked. There's a lot of things that need to
Absolutely.
be worked on.
Absolutely. We have to realize and understand that it matters. And this is why we were talking about education and seeing somebody like you that can relate to you, because at the end of the day, that person may understand, like, maybe this kid doesn't have a mom at home, when, there's people looking at these kids and like, You know, I had a mom and dad at home. I don't know why you're bad. I don't know why you're acting up. I don't know why you're crying. I don't know why you're doing, and not really understanding that when this kid comes to school, he may have just dealt with a buttload of stuff that wasn't his fault. And it happens all the time. These kids are given adult responsibilities,
Right. At a young
you
age.
know, and not able to be a kid and survive and thrive like the mental pressure. And I think that African Americans and some other minorities as well suffer from a PTSD. I think that is a ravaging thing that's happening because of, and it's generational, and I think it's because of what they've seen and dealt with. And now you want them to become adults and civilized citizens without understanding what they've been through. But when we diagnose people with these different things, we have to take that in consideration. And I'll use this as an example. You have a black kid. His black kid gets bored in class. He wants to, he's thinking about all the things except for school because he has to think he's dealing with something different at home. There may be drugs at home or mom not being, whatever the case is. This kid can't focus, so he goes to school and he's the problem child. He may need to be put on Ritalin because he's not focused, and maybe he just needs someone who understands him and can help bring the beauty out of him and say, well, look, you got people here to help you. And it starts ugly because there's pushback. You can relate to this, but eventually you win that kid's soul. And at the end of the day, all they really just wanted was a hug.
Right.
Yeah.
All they just wanted was somebody to talk to.
Feel loved.
That's the kind of key right now in education is, can you not only relate to the kid, but can you, in order to change someone, you can't pull them in. You can't first pull them where you are. You have to immerse yourself where they are.
Walk with them.
You'll get that change
It's beautiful,
a
man.
lot quicker.
Absolutely.
I can't expect you to come on up and understand me because on that journey you haven't learned anything. I have
Right.
to go down and figure out what makes you tick, and then now I can help get you to where you need to
Right.
be.
Absolutely. And that's really what it is. Understanding
well
where
said.
you're coming from, which is the whole point of, you can use that in any scenario,
Yes.
whether it's a problem person at work or whether it's a problem kid in school. At the end of the day, finding out what's going on with them and explaining, like, look, this is not your fault. Stop holding all this pressure of being responsible. We got to get you some help,
Hey, I want to point this out too. When I was in high school, that's two teachers that I can recall that did that made me want to get in education. Mr. Browner
Awesome.
and Miss Donges.
Awesome.
It resonated with me how they took into account when kids came to class late. Things happen. There are
Right.
things that happen. They didn't shut the doors in people's faces and nope, go to the office. They didn't. They didn't. When the kid was asleep, they weren't necessarily getting upset and snapping because you're asleep in class. And I take those things into account now, working in the class. Yeah, I'm hard-nosed sometimes. The majority of my kids will tell you that. I'm hard but fair. But I will pull you to the side if you sent to me and, for sleeping or because, something's wrong, you're outraged, you just snap because the teacher asked you to move your seat and you went off. Hey, come here. What's
Right.
going on? Why are you sleeping? Where were you at last night?
My experience in high school was totally opposite.
Mm-hmm.
I was bused to Northwest. And on arrival, there were crosses burning, rocks thrown.
Oh, man.
Went through all of that. And in every single class, I was the only black person in that class. And all the teachers were, the whole, system was white. And the only time we saw the other black people was at lunchtime or when we got back on that bus to go home.
Wow. Do you feel like your life and the things that you went through, do you feel like that has somewhat had an effect? Are you a parent?
Yes.
Okay. Do you feel like that has somewhat had an effect on a positive effect or a negative effect on you teaching your kids? And how do you think that they deal with life?
You got some good questions.
Okay.
Well, yeah, because I'm interested
I've been
in
through,
that.
I have 2 sons.
Okay.
And I have 4 grandsons. My oldest son went to Pike
Mm-hmm.
High School. and he's only dated white women, and he's been married to white women. So I have two biracial grandchildren, but it's been a struggle.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to, my son came to me with this, and me being the militant black woman that I was,
Sure. For sure.
I would fight to death for him.
Right.
And that's what I had to do.
Right.
So I've had to deal with it.
Right.
And it's not easy for me.
Right.
Because I can't forget all of those things. I lived through it, I got through it, but it wasn't a great experience.
Did you
for
raise
me.
him as a single mom?
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
And when I grew up right here in Indianapolis
Sure.
in a neighborhood, mom and dad. I had 7 sisters. We went to school in the neighborhood. We went to church in the neighborhood. I only saw white people on TV
Oh, wow.
until I went to Northwest.
Right.
When I went to Addicts, my first 6 weeks of high school, there was one white boy that went to school there, and there was one white teacher, Mr. Burns. I remember him. And then I had to go, and then I was thrust into that situation that was, really, brutal for me every
Probably
day.
too.
Right.
Devastating.
Right.
And so that's, and I had to grow into that, and I didn't enjoy high school at all.
Right.
And those teachers, that's where I understood where the teachers, when I was growing up in grade school, they cared about you. They cared if you learned, and they cared if you got it.
Right.
And it wasn't acceptable to not have straight A's
Right.
in school. Well, now we accept mediocrity from our children.
Oh,
It's
we accept
okay
way
if
less
you
than
get
that.
a C. That's
There's
ridiculous.
so much social
Right.
promotion going on. It's
Social
But
ridiculous.
they
Right.
caught us. They caught us sleeping. All the neighborhood schools are gone.
Right.
So
Right.
we have no choice but to put our kids on that bus and send them to township schools.
Right.
It's not fair.
Which is what drove up the township, enrollment, is that a lot of kids are being moved, and those are there are parents out there that see township as a good thing. Maybe I get my kid here. Maybe he adapts to the system and he goes to college. Some are on that level. But the problem is, which is what we've been stating here, is that they're not getting the right people in front of these people. And like Donnie was saying, is you have to match your enrollment. These people need, because there's people that can relate. Like, what was it, the dean that we had?
Mr. Euro.
I mean, he came in, and the first thing he said in the lunchroom was, "Your mama don't work here. Clean up all your stuff." And
And y'all
a lot of
figure that
people
out.
got their
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
together.
A lot of people
You
start
know,
picking up their trash.
and unfortunately, that's how it had to be said. But guess what?
It worked.
It worked.
That's
It
what,
worked.
and there's a difference between learning and education. And education is a good thing. It
Right.
gives you a better job and you make more money. But
Right.
they're not learning our children anything.
Right.
They're just there. They're passing them through. They're going to the system. If you go to high school now, Lawrence Central, any of them,
Right.
those kids can't even read at a 6th grade level.
Well,
You know what? Can I make a comment though too?
Sure, sure.
Because I think also parents have put a big burden on teachers.
Absolutely.
To
I agree with that.
to teach these children, and
Right.
when the kids come home, the parents don't even want to read to them.
Right.
They're like, "Go
That's
away. I'm tired. I don't want to teach you to
And
read."
they're missing it 'cause
And
if they're
so
not
they-
getting it at
no.
home. They're not getting it.
They're not getting it.
Absolutely.
And the thing of it is I was a single mom, raised my son,
Right.
and my mindset was not, gosh, I hope he can go to college. I was like, you're going to college. Which one do
Absolutely.
you want to go
Yeah.
to?
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
I didn't go to college.
Right.
And
Right.
I raised my son that way,
Mm-hmm.
where all things are possible.
Right.
And he went and got a great education. He does a
Right.
great job. He's married and a successful young man, but it was a lot of work. And
Right.
you have to have the mindset as a parent too.
You're
you know,
absolutely
raising
right.
good children and
Yeah.
again, breaking the chain of what has been in the past and using that as a
Right.
teaching tool, but that there is not a roadblock that you cannot jump over
Mm-hmm.
if you have your mind to it. And you,
Right.
you know,
So speaking of that roadblock, just in this, and I think you were getting to it a minute ago, and you guys are a great example of what I'm about to suggest here. because you started out and you said, hey, there's no media out here
Right.
representing us. What
Right.
did you do? You figured out a way, and you did it. And it's only
Absolutely.
been 6 months,
Right.
and this is historic because I put money down that you guys won't be in the same spot this time next year.
Oh,
I
wow.
bet it'll be something.
Thanks.
You
Thank
know
you.
what I mean? But Donnie was saying he's got some people he knows, very educated, very qualified, that are trying to make that start.
Mm-hmm.
So they are of that mindset. Now, he said he didn't know what the blocks were. I would guess, I'm not in their shoes. But those blocks they're trying to do it through traditional funding mechanisms.
Right.
And whoever has the cheese, what?
The wind.
He makes the rules.
Right.
Whoever has the gold makes the rules. So the challenge for the black community with regard to education, to get back to what he's saying, is we have to be willing to fund our own stuff.
Yeah.
Just like you two guys funded your own stuff. Because the investment is going to pay off
Right.
big time. And that is the mental block that we are still stuck on that chain and post.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
My thoughts on that is we have been trained to vote Democratic. On one hand, we are people that say, hey, the government hasn't done anything for us. But then on the other hand, we continue to vote for a certain party that makes us depend on government. So when you talk about keeping our money and our resources, I don't care how much money a person makes. The more you make, the more your perspective changes on that dollar, period. I don't care who you are.